Welcome back to Classroom to Code. I'm Nadia, and today we have a really special Father's Day episode. Noni wasn't able to join us today because she's not feeling well, so I'll be holding down the podcast solo, but we are both so excited for today's conversation. Today I'm joined by Sunny Patneedi, who is a dad, builder, and the founder of SayMake. Sunny is on a mission to help families raise builders instead of consumers. SayMake is a creation platform that helps kids take their ideas from their heads and turn them into real things that they can build themselves. And what I love about this conversation is that it brings together so many things that we care about: parenthood, creativity, AI, education, and what becomes possible when people stop waiting for permission and just start building. Before SayMake, Sunny was a software engineer. So he spent 20 years building and leading engineering teams at Apple, Microsoft, and Salesforce. So he brings this really unique perspective to building. He has worked inside some of the biggest tech companies in the world, and now he's using that experience to build something that gives kids confidence, agency, and the chance to see themselves as creators. So today we're going to talk about fatherhood, what it means to design for kids, how AI is changing what young people can make, and why tools like Replit are opening the door for more people to build. All right, Sunny, thank you for joining us today.
Hey, hi Nadia. Thanks for having
Uh,
me.
of course, of course. And we really wanted to highlight the fact that you are a father and a creator. And I wanted to start by asking you, as a dad, what made you start thinking about building for kids?
Um, yeah, I'm a father. I have two kids. I have a daughter who's 9 now, and a son who's almost 3. And yeah, I think there was this moment where my daughter, she was really into sea turtles, and my wife and I took her to the Monterey Bay Aquarium nearby, and she'd been talking about wanting to be a marine biologist, and we didn't really have much idea of what entails to become a marine biologist. So we went there and asked the visitor center, and they brought out Sarah, who is a marine biologist, and my daughter met her, and she was super excited and asked like 100 questions, and it was so great as a parent to see that interest, passion, her, just watching her light up. um, I think that made me and my wife also wonder, like, are we creating that space in her life? It feels like most, if, when I reflect back, like she was, a typical week, if I had asked her what happened, right, what did you do? It would be mostly content that she consumed. Oh, I watched this. Sure, I read a book, but, there wasn't a lot of opportunity to make and build things. And I think, she didn't need more answers. I think she needed somewhere to take her questions. That's kind of what drove me to build SayMake.
Okay, great. And I went over your background a little bit in your intro, but I'd love if you could tell me a little bit more about what you did before you were doing this, just because I don't think you were always making apps for children. Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah, I just a mixed background, 20 years in tech. I was at Apple prior to becoming a founder. I was at Apple for 7 years. I was leading engineering teams at Apple Maps. Had some really fun experiences leading like transit, EV charger, and places data that people use maps to navigate every day. And prior to that, I was at Salesforce, working in security AI. And before that, I was at Microsoft for 8 years, just working in different aspects of Microsoft, both on the business side and the consumer side of things.
How do you feel like that experience shaped what you're building with SayMake?
I think it definitely, was a very rewarding experience of learning how to build at scale. But I think at the same time, I felt like as a parent, I wanted to build and work on something more meaningful in my life, like with my kids and seeing their development and growth and what AI can do in a positive way, potentially. And yeah, I think. Even as a builder myself, I feel like AI was showing me that I could do more with
Mhm.
my interests. I work typically full stack. I work on the back end, the front end. I love the design. I like the business side of things as well. Interviewing users doesn't, it's something I've started to learn to enjoy. I think what that actually made me feel is I could do more with AI, and I wasn't really using all aspects of my brain or my self, and I had to push myself a little bit, get out of the comfort zone.
Yeah, that's fascinating that you're coming at this as a full stack developer because we met through the faculty fellows at Replit EDU.
Right.
And I am a non-technical, they say don't use non-technical, but I'm not a coder. We'll say that I'm not a developer. And I'm curious, as a developer who now uses some of the same tools that I use, how has that enhanced what you're able to build? And feel free to get specific.
Yeah, I think number one thing, for example, I can think of is I love design. I like to see things that are aesthetically beautiful. And worked at Apple. I obviously love beautiful products created by Apple. And there's so many talented designers at Apple that you're constantly inspired. But I myself did not know how to make beautiful things. But I
Mm,
think with Replit and other tools, Claude Design, being able to really push that aspect of me where I know and see what good design looks like. And I can sort of show it like, hey, this is what I like. This is my taste. Can you help me build this out? And also learning through the process. I didn't even know the official terminology of certain types of designs. And I'm kind of learning that, oh, this taste that I have is called museum grade design. I've never heard of that
yeah.
terminology before. And so, yeah, I think that is, I would say maybe I had like 5-10% of design knowledge, but now with these tools, I feel like I probably am maybe 50% more. And same thing to other aspects as well. Like, I'm not an AI researcher, but I participated in an AI research model competition set by OpenAI. It's called Parameter Golf, and so I know the basics, but it allowed me to, download, create my own local open source model, play with the weights, and see what would fine-tuning a model feel like, look like. And I ended up open sourcing something called it's basically giving it all my data, keeping it
Mhm.
local and private, and talking to
Mhm.
it like as if it understands my the way I speak, the way I write emails, the way I communicate with friends. But yeah,
Amazing.
that's
Wow, yeah. So you're coming at it from a pretty unique background, but what I love is how you mentioned that design element because I'm finding design to be such a big differentiator because I think in the past, and correct me if I'm wrong, we used to focus a lot on functionality, and which is important, of course, but now we have to go a step beyond that. And when you talk about designing for kids, I would love to hear any insight you have. What have you learned about designing for kids, from being a parent or from the product that you're creating?
Yeah, absolutely. Lots of things. So, I've in this past like year and a half, I've had the opportunities to talk to 100 plus parents and many kids to that, sat in classrooms, talk to educators like yourself who've taught me a lot about what it is to actually, be teaching kids and
Mhm.
through as they age and grow older and how that sort of shifts from like what they want versus what you're telling them to learn, right? And
Mhm.
so just the brain development, the different aspects and personalities, right? I worked with OT specialist who designs products, Katie Kirkal, and she had some workshops that I attended that really helped also see how, I remember being a kid myself in classrooms where I would feel very fidgety towards like the end of the class, wanting to go out on the playground, right? Restless.
Mhm.
And how do you build products for kids who don't want to be in front of a screen for 45 minutes? Typically, if
Right.
you're designing a learning product, you don't want to design knowing how Coursera is designed and exactly like that for kids, right? And so
Right. Right.
and then engagement, right? Kids, the attention span, the interest, while also we know the downsides of gamification and it's intrinsic versus extrinsic. Do you want kids to be only motivated through extrinsic things like prizes and rewards and
Right.
streaks? How long will that last? A mom that I was talking to told me how her daughter was in I think like a 1,000-day Duolingo streak or something like that, and she missed a couple days, and now she refuses to go back.
Yeah.
So there is that effect of having too much gamification. So yeah, there's lots around this, which is why I love it. I think there's so much complexity, similar to when you're designing like mapping and stuff, where there's so much in the real world, right, that has to be taken into account. It's not a simple thing that can be vibe coded, even though you can get started.
Mhm.
So yeah.
Yeah, no, you bring up such a good point about gamification. I think sometimes we use these buzzwords and we think, oh, gamification, it's going to be like, it's going to be so fun, the kid's going to be engaged, but what are we actually teaching and what does it mean, right? Because even under these umbrella terms, there's so many, does that mean a token economy? Does it mean like Duolingo? Is it a streak? And how does that motivate or not motivate kids? And that gets into educational psychology. So there's a whole field, we're talking behaviorism. Do we want to just give them a treat every time, or what are we trying to motivate? And I think that goes into your mission about building or about creating builders, not consumers. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I think we're in a different generation. Like the previous generation, it was about, when you're building and making things, it was in a garage, or if you're starting a company, it was like you needed a garage and a group of folks and stuff. Right now, you can just do that on a laptop,
Hmm.
but you need to have the curiosity to do that. Um, so I feel like now it's less about bringing the child or the builder to the laptop, to the screen, but really when they come to the screen, are they going to be consuming? Are they going to be watching and reading versus making and building? I feel like that is my mission role, where when a child is at the screen, how do we get them to get excited, curious to build and make?
We talked a little bit about gamification, and there are a lot of opinions about it. There's a lot of things that it might mean to different people. I was wondering if you could expand a little bit on gamification and your thoughts around it.
Yeah, I think, we know that it's really hard to get kids' attention. And so it's important for whatever you're building to be highly engaging. And we know where gamification works. There's a reason companies like Duolingo have been really successful. But I think I've learned actually from educators like yourself and researchers that it doesn't always work long term. It's definitely a good short-term carrot, right, to incentivize kids to get on the platform. I think for long term, the parents know intuitively as well that you want some other kind of a drive, motivation that kicks in, that's intrinsic and not extrinsic. But how do you build that? How do you get to that is really a challenge. So I think there's a fine balance here. I do use extrinsic rewards with my daughter sometimes, where I'm like, you can get this treat, or we can go, to the her favorite coffee shop or restaurant or bakery, right? But I know that it's only limited. I can use it only so many times. So it really has to be like, what do you want to do? What gets you excited? What can you not stop thinking about? Those healthy obsessions, those fixations. I think leaning into that is natural, is a great way to get that engagement, which isn't gamified. Sure, they would, I think, benefit from seeing the progress they've done by showing some amount of streaks, but also not penalizing them when they don't, show up, because we can all have a bad day, right? So I think, yeah, previously tech has been very much on the clicks, the views, and so it was always incentivized to like make sure that your users are coming to your app every single day, at the cost of their long-term, growth. And I hope future products like SayMake ourselves, we stand up to a higher bar where we focus more on the long term while also understanding it's important to keep the child engaged some way to bring them back to the product and keep them learning.
Absolutely. And this reminds me of actually a course I took in grad school. My doctorate is in educational psychology and technology. And one of the things we talk about is motivation and learning. And gamification is it's wonderful at, sometimes keeping kids motivated while it works. But at the same time, sometimes people lean very heavily on it's almost like Pavlov's dogs. You give a treat for getting it right. And what are we motivating them towards a treat, or are we motivating the process of learning?
Yeah.
Right. So I think I'm happy you brought this up as a topic because it is such a big thing to talk about. Also with Replit, we are able to gamify so easily, but I think there are better ways to do it, or a way to mix the different approaches so that you're still nurturing the love of learning, and that curiosity aspect, instead of just using it as a reward system. It's a huge topic in building ed tech, and tech for kids, and so I appreciate you shedding some light on it. Right. Have you tried your apps with your kids at all?
Yeah, so we've been piloting and using the product. Happy to share a quick peek. We actually launched it for free today with parents to upload what their children want to build this summer. So here's like a quick sneak peek of SayMake. If you're a parent with kids, you can, especially ages 7 to 14, a little younger, older works as well, but you can come in and upload a picture, an image. Let's say uploaded an image of, let me find that, a thing that a kid built and, call this the flight um, cardboard thing that they build, and then you save it to your shelf. And when you save it, we give a question that you can ask about this particular thing. You can share this with your family, and they don't need an account. You can just share it. You'll get a link. You can see what this looks like for yourself too, like a
Cool.
reel, like a Spotify Wrapped. And if you have, you can see their portfolio, which will have many things. Who are they becoming by making and creating this entire summer, right? And you can see these are more tests, but a reel that would have many bills would look, full of a story of many things that they made and built.
Very cool. So, tell me a little bit about when a child, let's say they want to use SayMake, how would they start?
Yeah, so the parent part is the free thing where we allow parents and kids to upload for free. The child one right now is still private and closed beta. We're tuning it and enhancing it, which is the paid part. The way we're working or building that and testing it out with families is a challenge every week. So every week a different theme. Sometimes it's about building their confidence. Sometimes it's
Mhm.
about building empathy. Sometimes it's about a constraint. How do you build around a constraint? So every week it's a different theme, and we generate the challenge. One of the challenges was building a catapult, a marshmallow catapult, with
Okay.
cardboards. Another challenge was about we partnered with a dentist, a pediatric dentist, about a floss reminder app. So it can also
Yeah.
be mini apps. That they can make and create. So we're figuring this out with families. What are some purposeful, meaningful builds, that we can create and they can come back to it and tinker. We create the initial challenge, but the
Okay.
kids can actually take and tinker with it. So that becomes their own, and they answer a couple of questions. They understand why are they building it, who are they building it for, which is what we know with like AI. You can always tell it to build a floss reminder app, and it'll go do its job and then vibe code it in one shot. But when
Right.
you give it rich context, right, it becomes a different version, your own, right, and more useful and meaningful. And so that's kind of what we're trying to teach or train.
I love that. And you mentioned the catapult and the app. So they can build, so it's not just building apps or just on the screen, it is also physical.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
We're
Very
exploring
cool.
ways on how to make this really fun and like let's say they build something on the screen, it'll probably nudge them to say, hey, maybe now it's time to build something in the real world. Try out some one of these challenges, which is more physical with your hands and things lying around your house, so you don't have to go spend money buying a kit.
Right. No, I love that. I love that they're, taking it into their own hands. When we think about psychology, we're thinking about their locus of control, right? You see a
Yes.
problem, you can build a solution. You imagine it, you can build it. So that is a way of thinking that's so powerful in children. And I think that that's, you're building that AI literacy piece, which is so huge for the workforce moving forward, but also, doing it in a fun and creative way and something that parents and kids can do together. I will say, as a mom myself, my daughter, when she's home for summer break, I'm just thinking, how do I entertain her? I don't want her, being a screen zombie when I'm on meetings also. So what do we do? So I love that you've got that physical piece, but also I do think AI literacy and having, the ability to build an app as well is so powerful and important for the future. I'm curious, do you have any advice? We focus a lot on mothers on our podcast because Noni and I are both mothers, but do you have any advice for fathers? Because dads are, I mean, I think about my husband and he sees problems that I don't even realize are there too. Like what advice would you give to fathers who are thinking about stepping into this space and building?
Yeah, I mean, I love my kids. I love spending time with them, and I think for me, what clicks the most is finding that overlap where I'm excited about something and they are
Mhm.
also excited about something similar. Sometimes
Yeah.
it's not a perfect overlap, but sometimes we find our way through it. So the other day I was trying to get my daughter to like use SayMake and build something, and she was in the mood of like actually going out in the garage and creating something, right? And so, sometimes it's that, but I lean into what do I get more excited and interested in, and then I offer some choices. And I feel like that is like a great way to bond and connect. And also, if there's a story behind it, like when I share, like for example, oh, yeah, this is how your granddad
Mhm.
built this with me, right? And this is the story. I think they tend to really be excited about the story, but also of like making and creating and building something together, which it gives me joy, honestly. Like I've been doing this like for free or for fun, with my family, with other coworkers, trying to get them on Replit or Claude Code. So when I do it with kids, it's actually really joyful because you kind of see a different side of this and how they come to it. And like, hey, I want to make a boba garden,
Right.
and I want to make this sticker comic book, and so there's just such interesting creative things which I feel like for me as a builder, and we talked about design earlier, it's like how children's creative mind works and where they get inspiration from the books they read, from their friends, from the
Mhm.
movies or shows they watch, and how do you sort of bring that to life is super fun and fascinating.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it's so powerful as a parent to even see them, see that switch with realizing I can build this myself. They don't feel like they have to go buy it.
Yeah.
You mentioned the sticker book. Is that something that your daughter created?
Yeah, she was trying. She was really. This was like a couple months ago. She hasn't gone back to it, but she was really into like all the unicorns, donuts, sprinkles,
Mhm.
and so she just wanted to put all of them together. And she had this idea that they're falling out of the sky, and then she could move the stickers around, and it was far more animated, right, compared to like
Yeah.
a real sticker book, physical sticker book. So
Mhm.
yeah.
Very cool. I love how it can just come, pop into their head and then they now feel like they have the agency to build it.
Yeah, I love
One
what you
question,
said there, the agency part. I think that
yes.
is actually the key feel. I think we all recognize that where it's when knowledge is at your fingertips and you can really access that easily through these models. It's how do you create that agency, and what do you get from having kids who have agency? As in, what do they, who do they become, right? And I think there are some examples we see around ourselves where the kids who have that agency and they create, they're confident, they're happy, they are not worried about the future and the changes. They see themselves as problem solvers. So when you have that within you, and you talked about locus of control and that, which is, I think, also important in this future generation, where if you just build that early on, then that sort of could compound into who they become when they are much older.
Right, right. And as parents, we have a responsibility to nurture the things that are going to help make our kids successful, right? So I love what you're doing. I'm so excited to try SayMake with my own child. I want to ask, is there an age range that you're targeting specifically?
7 to 14, but younger and older is fine too. Like we would absolutely invite. I think we're trying to, the makers and the builders who are comfortable
Mhm.
using tech a little bit seem to be in that age range.
Okay, great. So where can people find you if they want to reach out to you or if they want to try SayMake?
LinkedIn is great. I'm also on X. You can also shoot me an email at sunny@saymake.app. And yeah, I think if you're thinking of your child, how they can sort of get introduced to be building and creating, we're even doing private one-on-one builds and makes with some families. We're happy to, schedule and do that as well.
Awesome. Well, happy Father's Day to you, Sunny. Thank you so much for being on our podcast. I love to see parents building. I love to see dads getting involved in their kids' learning and the difference that we can make. So, thank you again for joining us.
Thank you, Nadia, and thanks for having me and for creating this platform.
Of
Excited for your next episodes. Yeah.